Well, Mississippi State is still in search of a baseball coach, and On3 has updated who might be the top of their list. We're going to go through each one and break that down. That's coming up next.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com. All right, I'm Jaron. I'm a national college football writer with Athlon Sports. That's Landon, and we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about On3 has released their 4 top candidates on their hot board for the Mississippi State baseball job. We're also going to talk about just how good of a job is it. The Clarion Ledger put out a great article kind of ranking the major categories and where Mississippi State stands. And as promised, later today, actually here in a few hours, the softball team kicks off its SEC tournament play. So we're going to preview that game. So, Landon, let's get into the baseball topic to start things off. And so this is Pete Nakos from On3. He does a great job, especially when it comes to hot boards, transfer portal stuff. He's really good at it. But his 4 candidates are Georgia's Wes Johnson, Virginia's Brian O'Connor, Kansas's Dan Fitzgerald, and Wake Forest's Tom Walter. So, kind of when you hear that list, that's a lot of the people we heard from the initial list. I don't believe Fitzgerald was on there from Kansas in the initial one, so that's kind of a new one. But it's also taken some away. Mingione was one that we mentioned that was on the original one from Kentucky. He's not on there anymore. So, kind of what's your thoughts?
My first thought was if Brian O'Connor gets hired, how many Fast and the Furious puns I can work into every time we talk about baseball. But so him, like, I understand why he's on there. He's one of the best coach. He's shown he's one of the best coaches in college baseball, been at Virginia for so long. I don't know why he'd leave there. Like, I think it's an interesting name, but I don't know why he'd leave when he's built that program into something so successful. He's been there like 20 years.
Yeah,
unless there's some kind of friction, why would he leave? That was my first thought with him. Fitzgerald, at first, I was not so excited when you hear, Kansas's coach. They're not historically a very good program.
Right.
But then you look at his background where he was an assistant at LSU, one of the best college baseball programs, and Dallas Baptist, who was one of the most educated. So he kind of jumped up the top of my list pretty quick after I dug into his background a little bit more.
Yeah, I like him a lot. And the one thing about O'Connor, and Nakos actually talks about this, because when you see a guy that's been somewhere for 22 years, it's like, and he's won a national championship there. It's like, why would he leave there kind of thing? Well, according to Pete Nakos, he says sources have indicated that he could be looking for more resources entering the revenue sharing era of college sports, which Mississippi State can offer. But like we've said, he's been there since 2004. So it's not like it would be an easy move for him, but maybe he's not getting the support he thought he would get, or probably really should get, seeing how long he's been there. The Wake Forest one, man, I really like that one. Obviously, he's in his 16th season at Wake Forest. Walter is who I'm talking about. He's even closing in on 500 career wins. He was kind of, his name was really tied to that South Carolina job. I believe it was last year, maybe the year before. I can't remember. But that ultimately went to someone else, so he didn't end up getting that one. But he's 2 years removed from a College World Series appearance, so he's done it recently and over a long term. He's got great first-round draft pick success, has had 7 since 2020. That just seems like a really good home run type hire. No pun intended.
Yeah. And I mentioned, their program before. They are another program that has been on the forefront of all of the different types of like pitch shaping, pitch tracking, all of that.
Right.
I think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, The Athletic actually did like a series of articles on them building up all of those different things. It was great. If you can hunt it down, definitely worth the read if you're into those kind of things. I think he would be the home run hire if you can get him away from him, because if he brings that kind of mindset and all of those types of programs and all of that, and then you infuse it with the more resources and the facilities that he will have at Mississippi State, you could build something special.
Yeah, and it's funny, the one we didn't talk about is Wes Johnson, and he's having a great year this season at Georgia. He led the Bulldogs to a number 7 seed in the NCAA tournament and hosted a super regional last year. Now this year, they're 39-11, 15-9 in SEC, and they're positioned to host a regional again. They're ranked number 1 in the RPI rankings, and they're really eyeing the number 1 overall seed because of how strong they play. We'll see what they end up doing here at the end of the year, and then obviously in the SEC tournament. But Wes Johnson's got that thing rolling right now.
Yeah, he does. And he has such a great track record as a pitching coach. So, if he comes in, the pitching staff, which we've complained about a lot over this season, that's going to get fixed if he comes in the door. And, he's got some ties to Mississippi State. So, maybe that's a selling point for him coming here. But, yeah, he has things rolling for Georgia. He would be another, like all of these guys would be great hires. I think he's one,
right.
He had, one of the lesser experienced as actual head coach of all of these candidates, but I think he'd be a very good hire. You are projecting a little bit more because this was like his first season. So,
right. And another one I hear brought up a lot. Okay, what if Mississippi State goes on this run, makes the tournament? Justin Parker, would he get a look at the head coaching job? I just don't see it. And Paul Feinbaum actually made a great point about that. He said, you don't fire your head coach who won a national championship for you mid-season if you're going to hire from within. That means you kind of have an idea who you want, and you want to get a start on that process now, and it's an outside hire. It's not an inside hire. And I agree with that. I think they don't want to just go with Parker and want to keep an internal. I think they want a clear slate, and they want to go try to make a splash. And we'll get into it next segment, but they're a program that's able to make a splash.
Yes, they are. And one other name I saw somewhere today, I can't remember what it was Josh Lander for Tennessee, their head of recruiting and assistant coach. So, that would be
we brought him up. So
yeah, that would be a big one. You get the head of someone who's recruiting all those people to Tennessee, just get them to come a little bit further south. Yeah. You could do something well there if they wanted to go the assistant coach route. I think he's kind of probably one of the bigger names of assistant coaches that you could probably bring in if you went that route as well. But
yeah,
I agree. Feinbaum's right on with that. Hey, look at Feinbaum 2 shows in a row.
I know, right? He's getting a lot of pub here. Okay. So before we get into the next segment, I do want to bring up something that we kind of talked about yesterday. We talked about kind of how you need to be all in on football you need to be spending your money all in on football, because all the other programs, that's just not your moneymaker. And I've seen I saw one comment on the video say, hey, they need to go all in on basketball and baseball and just leave football in the background. And they said it would make a lot of business sense. It actually would make terrible business sense. If you did that, a lot of your other sports would have to shut down because of the revenue. Another thing I saw is we need to stop funding the women's sports. Well, I'm about to read you some numbers and tell you why that would be a bad idea as well. So this is based off of last season. The Mississippi State football team, they raked in $43.8 million in revenue. Now, their expenses was 35.6, so 8.2 million is kind of what their profit. They were plus 8.2 million. That's what they yielded in last year. Okay. The other sports combined, so baseball, softball, men's and women's basketball, lost $1.4 million. Okay. And the reason why I would say it's a bad idea for women's sports, it wasn't your women's sports that lost it. Women's basketball was net positive or net even. And then softball was the only other sport that made money, and they made about $600,000. So they didn't make a whole lot. Men's basketball lost $2 million, and the baseball team broke even as well. $8 million is what your basketball team is making, and so it's making up for the
football team.
Football team. Yeah, $8 million is what your football team is making. It's making up for the $1.5 million or $1.4 million you're losing every year. And then on top of that, it's helping fund the facilities, which we're about to talk about with baseball. It's helping fund some of the on-campus stuff. And this is coming off a 2-10 season. This just shows you that despite how good you are at the sport, fans are coming to this games. You have a basically 61,000 seat stadium. So you're getting 61,000 people there. On top of that, you get concessions. and then obviously the TV revenue and all that advertisement sharing and all of that and jersey sales and on and on and on, merchandise. It would be the biggest mistake if you gave up football, or if you didn't just focus on football.
Yeah, you have to funnel money into it. And 99% of athletic directors understand you have to funnel all of the money into football, because not only does it fund all those other sports, it funds all of the buildings that you see on campus that aren't made from just donations. Football is the lifeblood of colleges in America, not just college sports. It's all of colleges. So you have to keep pushing money into it. As the team gets better, the revenue will grow even more, because you'll see more people showing up at those games. I did see something. I didn't get a chance to really dig into it, so I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I did see that Mississippi State was the only SEC team that brought in less than $50 million in revenue from football last year.
Yeah. So and they were the worst team, so it kind of makes sense, but they were still an 8 million positive by being a terrible team. So now you actually put a good product out there, and you're going to be raking in the millions of dollars. So, you can't cut football, because if you cut football, those sports that you said you want to put the money in, baseball, basketball, might not exist. Yeah, they might not last too much longer. So, so we'll see what happens there. All right, so how good of a job is Mississippi State baseball? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Also, posting a job is free and simple, and within a day with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork also helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so the Clarion Ledger put out a deal. Just how attractive is the Mississippi State baseball coaching job? They graded several things: salary, facilities, NIL, and more. And we'll just kind of generically go over that, and then we can kind of dive into each one. But facilities, they gave an A. Salary, A-, history, A-. NIL, they said to be decided, to be determined. It's just not public info right now. But we did go into NIL yesterday, just as an overall university, not just baseball. So you can check out that one if you want to listen to that. Roster, a B. Fan support, an A. And MLB draft pipeline, an A. So just kind of going off of that, what is your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much right. I mean, salary, that's a hard one to say for sure, because, that's all going to depend on what route you go with this hire. I do think you have to go for someone. I mean, you got to shell out the money. You're not, so that's going to have to be an A here. Right. But I mean, the facilities 100% an A, if not an A+. I mean, we've talked about that, how this is one of, if not the best stadiums in college sports, relatively, very new practice facilities open just in the last few years. So that's a major selling point. And then roster, that's another one that's tough to say, because maybe the coach wants to overhaul some of the roster, but a B seems about right, because we've talked about this team is talented but has its flaws. And if the new coach comes in, brings in a bunch of new guys, that B quickly becomes an A, though.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the salary, because that's kind of where I was headed. And I know Lemonis has not been extended since 2021. And when he was last extended, he was up near the top in pay in terms of the SEC, but he was middle of the pack this year. And so that tells me right there, I can't give that an A or an A- as they gave it. I would have to give that a B if you're middle of the pack, especially because it's a coach that's won a national championship. And I get, he hadn't been extended because he hasn't performed well. And so I understand that part. But unless they come back and with this next hire are back up in that top tier, of money, which if they're going to hire one of the guys we mentioned, they're going to have to be in the
That's going to have to be an A+.
Yeah, it's going to have to be up there. But my thing is, he won the national championship right during that time, and he never got I think he got the extension right after winning it, and then he never got another one after that. And again, I understand they struggled, but let's see. It says history shows MSU is willing to pay one of the better salaries, and I believe they are, but they haven't recently. And part of it might be Lamonis has struggled. Part of it might be they have to kind of think about how they're using their money differently in this era. And so that's why I want to see this hire first. Let's see what they do with this hire. How much do they pay this hire before I'm all in on giving it at least an A-.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I am with it too. Like, yeah, he might have been like an A-, B+ area, but that doesn't really matter. It's what you pay the next guy. And if you're luring away someone with head coaching experience that's had the success that we've talked about with these guys, and the one that hasn't is great season and in the SEC, you're paying top dollar for these guys. So, but I mean, when you factor in the history, obviously a lot of history are both, recently and long-term and draft pipeline. I mean, what is it? It's only 1 year since 1976 a Mississippi State player hasn't been drafted.
Right.
That's an insane stretch. And we've talked about how they're like legends from Palmero, Will Clark, those guys back then. And now just the recent string of draft picks just last year, 11 more. So it's a proven pipeline regardless of who the coach is over the years.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did talk about NIL because it's not public, and it says they haven't announced how much they're going to allocate to baseball. But it does mention NIL really just depends on the coach. I mean, yes, you have the backing, but one, boosters are more willing to back if they have a coach they believe in. But two, the coach has to get out there and get to talking and get out there and really basically fundraise for all this money. I mean, that's what you got to do. And also things could change a lot with this house settlement. We still don't know all the details with that, but that's something I think is going to be, if it passes, I think it's going to be really good for college sports. We kind of talk about how crazy college sports are right now because you have some teams, like we mentioned Texas, I think it was yesterday on yesterday's podcast, spending like $40 million on a football roster, like 30 to 40 million, and other teams can only spend like $5 million. And that's just not really fair when you break it down, whereas this revenue sharing house settlement, if it gets passed, every team will kind of be on a cap where they can
a little bit.
Yeah, and so that will be good. And that might make it where, like, let's take Texas for example. If they capped football at 15 million, you can only spend, or let's just say 20 million. That means that 20 million that was also going to go to football now can go to all the other sports. And so that's something like, we don't know how much they've allocated for each sport. So let's say they've put 15 to Mississippi State football. And let's say they cap it at 10 million. Well, now you got 5 million to spread out with all your other sports. And so that could obviously be big for, I would assume they would put a lot of that towards baseball, given the history.
Yeah, I would expect a lot of it to go to baseball. And, you also have to have players worth throwing that money at.
Yes.
And having, a new coach that, I mean, fan base is always fired up, but it's been a different kind of fired up lately, not really the good kind. And we need to get it, if you get someone in who brings the right energy back into the building, just really pack the stadium and get everyone behind him again, that's going to open up pockets too. Like just getting once people get the taste of, man, we could be back to another national title sooner rather than later. Those donors will start letting the checks fly.
And you get one of those coaches we mentioned in the first segment. I mean, that's going to get the donors ready to sign some checks. But yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening this offseason, because I think that's when the house settlement is kind of expected to get moving and maybe passed.
Getting pushed back.
I'm about to say it keeps getting pushed back, and so we'll see if it actually goes this summer. But if it does go this
government.
Yeah, right. If it does get past this summer, we should have a better idea of where we're at with that, and that should give us a better idea overall with NIL. I believe it also will make NIL public, if I remember correctly, and where teams have to now say how much they have and are allocating
portions of it, depending on where it comes from.
Because I think they're now school employees, if I remember correctly. The athletes are.
I do know.
And so that's why I think you have to now know how much, because not all of them, but a lot of these universities are public universities. Like USC wouldn't have to reveal it, but like Mississippi State and some of these other universities would have to at least say like, hey, this is how much money Blake Shapen's making, or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how all that works out. But all right, coming up next, we got to talk about the softball. First game of the SEC tournament is just in a few hours against the LSU Tigers. We'll break it down.
The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You see which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and you can bet on those players. Like if you think Jokic is going to have another massive game, put the money on him, and you can go with a same game parlay. So if in the middle of the game, Buddy Hield is having another monster game, ride that a little bit and see where that gets you. And you could turn your first $5 bet into $200 in bonus bets, making you able to have all that fun all playoff long. So if you are new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, big game today, LSU Tigers and Mississippi State. Number 10 in the country, LSU. That gets off at 10 a.m., so, 3.5 hours from now? So,
yeah,
that or wherever you listen to this. If you listen to it when it dropped at 6, you got 3.5 hours. If you listen to it a little later, the game might even be over at this point. So, but yeah, I mean, LSU, great team, 40-13 on the year, but they did go 12-12 in conference play.
Yeah.
30-4 at home, 6-9 away, but this is going to be neutral. So it's they're undefeated in neutral site games. So
it'll be a fun one. And these two teams, we mentioned how these two teams hadn't played this season.
Right.
They haven't played in a while. It was April of 23 the last time these two teams met. So,
and you were telling me it's and we kind of already knew just from you knew it wasn't going well for Mississippi State, but you had the record, and then it really ain't going well.
It was 12-65 lifetime. So, not great historically, but these two teams are a lot more closely matched than I think a lot of those teams
that we
had in the past. And, we've talked a lot about how you need two pitchers to get through the postseason. And LSU has two pitchers. They have two very good pitchers. So it'll be, I don't know which one they'll throw, which one will start this game. But either if it's Sidney Berzon or Jaden Heavener, as I'm guessing how you say that, either one, you're going to have to win a pitcher's duel probably, because you're probably not putting up a ton of runs on either of them.
I got dog barking behind me right now. But yeah, no, we'll see what ends up happening with the game. Mississippi State, you got to come out firing because LSU's on a tear right now. I know they won 1 out of 2 against Arkansas, but they won 2 out of 3 against Florida. And it's just going to be a really tough team to beat going forward. But if you can get one, it's like we talked about earlier and like we talked about with the basketball tournament, just get one. Because if you lose to Oklahoma, so be it. But can you beat LSU? That's the big one. If you can get that one, you got some momentum going into the tournament.
Yeah, you do. And we've talked about it a lot, how we think that Mississippi State is in that next tier down from the elites. And LSU, I think they're kind of they're in that middle. They're that half tier up. Maybe not all the way this year, but, historically, they're kind of that half tier up. They're not the elite of the elite, but they're very, 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 very good. So if you can beat this team, shows you're right there. Again, we've talked about that a lot. You can compete with the best, and that's, time to win one of them.
Yeah, and the Arkansas series was a weird one because they lost 12-9 the first game, LSU did, but then you come back and you win 13-2, just blast Arkansas, but then you lose 0-6 to close out the weekend. But like I mentioned, they mercy ruled Florida in one of the games, 10-2. Then they won the other one 2-1. So it's a team that can play really, really good or can kind of lay an egg. So it just depends which team shows up. A&M, they got swept in that series. They lost 2 out of 3 against Texas. So it's a vulnerable team. And then we mentioned with Mississippi State, 2-1 against Ole Miss, which obviously was big. You went 2-1 against Kentucky. You lost all 3 the series before that to Oklahoma, but all 3 were pretty close games. First game was 4-0, but outside of that, they're all pretty close games. You were at least in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went 2-1 against Missouri the series before that. So you're playing really good softball. Yeah. Just get one. I mean, we keep saying it. Just get one. So hopefully this is the one they get. All right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. I said it yesterday. I have a story up on Mississippi State, so check that out. That's Landon. Follow Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We post daily videos on those, so check it out. Comment. We always leave a comment at the bottom of these videos here on YouTube, so check that out. Reply to that comment. We love to hear your feedback. We also have a poll of a different question. We love your feedback on that. That's also on YouTube. So just go to our page. You can find it and click that. But yeah, so hopefully we're talking about a Mississippi State win over LSU on tomorrow's episode. So, but until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.